Welcome back to another chess game analysis video. Today I want to show you a game between Yang Yi Yu and Rinat Yumabayev. And the game we're going to look at features a nice opening as always. We have e4, e5, knight f3, we have knight c6, d4. This is called the Scotch game. Then we have e takes d4, and now you can recapture with the knight, which is possible, or you can gambit the pawn, c3. And after d takes c3, we have an opening that normally arises from this position. e4, e5, we have d4, e takes d4, c3, d takes c3, knight f3, knight c6, and for instance queen b3, e takes b2, and then we reach the Danish gambit. We have already taken a look at that in previous videos. So this gambit is that arises after the Scotch game is called the Göring Gambit. It's very similar to the Danish gambit. And you see that you can also, with a transposition of move orders, reach the Danish gambit. If you don't want to play the center game right away, but you want to first develop your knight, and then you can still go into the Danish. This is a very nice variation. So now, again, as in the Danish, you have two options. You can either develop the bishop or you can take with the knight. Here in this game, Yang Yi decided to develop the bishop, which is again the more aggressive variation to treat this position. You have c takes b2, bishop takes b2, and now you see black is up 2 pawns, but white is way better developed, and the engine also sees some compensation for white here. And the database also features a lot of nice wins with the white pieces in this position. So we have bishop b4 check, developing a piece, knight c3, we have d6, queen b3, again you see this very nice battery, bishop e6, blocking the battery, giving back one of the pawns, bishop takes e6, f takes e6, but you should not take this pawn with the queen, which would be a mistake because after the queen blocks, you kind of need to trade queens and you get this position where you're just down a pawn and you have absolutely no compensation for it. The engine already says black is winning here because this pawn is definitely an advantage that you can convert into a win. So don't be greedy here. Develop naturally with castles. Don't go for this pawn. You're gonna win back some material if you play correctly. You're gonna win back some material anyway. So don't be greedy. So now black defends the pawn, which was still under attack. Queen d7 prepares long castles. Now we have knight d5. I'm going to show you in a second why the knight can't be captured, because there is another very similar variation um, in a few moves where the knight is going to be captured. We have a5 first, knight g5 going in, and now we take the knight, e takes d5, which is okay, the piece sacrifice, because you're going to get your piece back after e takes d5, knight e5, and we have knight e6 going in here, a very nicely placed knight. So white has a very nice position and has compensation for a pawn and a knight. We have an equal but very unbalanced position here because of the material and the activity. White's king is much safer than black's king, but black has got more material. So we have knight f6 development a3. Now asking the bishop a question, bishop c5. Basically the only retreating move that kind of makes sense. You could maybe think about something like bishop d2, but the bishop is just going to get kicked again and it has to retreat then. So bishop c5, definitely a good move. We have rook a e1, now aligning the rook with the black king. It's already getting pretty dangerous, and you see black at some point probably has to give back some of the material, even though the engine still gives black a slight advantage. I think this is very hard to play, being in the defense in this position. So now the first inaccuracy is king f7, which leads to a small white advantage. The better move would have been b6, which is the alternative to stabilize the bishop, which was attacked even more. But the knight still captures the bishop and b takes e5, and now we have f4, and this wins back the knight and the attack is still going. So this would be a little bit better than in the game, but it wouldn't. White would still equalize, sort of, because this is just very hard to play. And white has got some compensation because of the activity of the pieces. So we have knight takes c5, and now you see this pawn is overloaded. It has to recapture the knight, but it has also got to defend the own knight. So d takes c5, and now rook takes e4, e5, and now we see that black is only up a pawn in this position, and the engine now favors white slightly because of the activity, and there are discovered checks here. The queen is very nicely placed, the bishop is nicely placed, the rooks are going to come to the open e-file, and black still has got trouble with these two rooks, bringing them into the game. So now rook h e8, now trying to trade material because you're still up a pawn. If you trade everything down and if there is no white attack, then black is better. But here we have first of all d6 check, king f8, and now you don't trade rook, but you take on c5, winning back a pawn. Queen takes d6, we have a4, b6, kicking the rook, rook f5. Now the rook is very nicely aligned with the black king, and there can be tactics. Maybe you can sacrifice the rook at some point. Rook e6, now defending the knight, which was sort of under attack, just stabilizing the position. Maybe the idea is also to bring the other rook into the game. So a very nice move, rook a d8, would have been possible to activate the last rook and trying to hold this position. This would have been a better idea, and with this move, the engine actually says that black equalizes, and that it's still white has got compensation for a pawn, but not more than compensation. With the move in the game, rook e6, white actually has the advantage because this knight is still pinned. And with g4, you now try to attack the pinned piece. h6, trying to prevent that, but h4 anyway. So now the threat is again to win back this knight. The engine is still in this position. If you ask the engine after h4, rook a e1, rook a e8, activating the last remaining rook would actually give black compensation. After g5, h takes g5, h takes g5. We have rook e3, which is very nice. It attacks the queen, and if you take the rook, then queen g3 check, king h1, queen h3 check, and we have a threefold repetition which would lead to a draw. So maybe you don't accept the rook here, but you try to move the queen away, and then rook g3 check. The rook sacrifices itself again, and now you basically have to take the rook in order not to be checkmated, and we have the same story all over again. So very nice save in the position, sacrificing this knight, not caring about it, and getting counterplay with rook e3. Very hard to find, but this would have been the best black defense. And as always, trying to create counterplay in chess is often better than trying to hold on to material and trying to hold on to a lost position where you're just in the defense and you try to somehow not lose the game on the spot. So very nice lesson for me in this position, trying to activate the last remaining rook instead of what happened in the game, king e8. So the king goes away from this file so that the knight is no longer attacked. Or it can be attacked, but it's not pinned anymore. Rook d1 first, gaining a tempo, attacking the queen. Queen has to move. g5 now attacking this knight. H takes, and now the knight moves back. We have bishop a3 activating the bishop, and now it very much everything is looking at the black king. It's not looking very nice anymore. Rook e1 check, an in-between move, king h2. The king is very safe on h2. Queen e6 was played, and now after rook takes e1, black resigned the game here in this position. I'm just gonna show you what happens if you play on. The engine says no matter what you do, it's mate in 4. So I'm just gonna show you the obvious variation where you recapture the rook. Otherwise you're just down a rook, and there is no further playing with being down a rook. And if you accept the white rook, then queen g8 check, king has to move. Then we have rook d5 check, and now there is a mating net kind of in the middle of the board here on c6, because the queen can capture the rook that has never moved on a8, a very nice checkmate in this position. This is why after rook takes e1, not doomed by EAF resigned the game, which is kind of justified. And again, a very nice attacking game with something that resembles the Danish Gambit, but it arises through the Scotch game. So maybe you can also try out the Scotch game. I think it's very interesting variation. I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the game. And if you want to see more live chess gameplay, you can check out my Twitch. Feel free to send me suggestions in the comments, or if you want to see specific games, you can also send that to me for analysis. I hope you liked today's video. See you in the next one. Bye.